Ladies and gentlemen, we will be presenting A Christmas Carol. Once upon a time, upon a Christmas Eve, old Scrooge sat busy in his counting house.
A Merry Christmas, Uncle.
It was the voice of Scrooge's nephew.
Bah humbug.
Christmas? A humbug? Uncle, you don't mean that, I'm sure.
Oh, I do. Out upon Merry Christmas. If I had mine, well, every idiot that goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled with his own pudding, he should.
Uncle.
Nephew, keep Christmas in your own way, let me keep it in mine.
Keep it, but you don't keep it.
Well, let me leave it alone then. Much good may it do you? Much good has it ever done you?
I've always thought of Christmas time as a good time. A kind, forgiving, charitable, pleasant time. And though it has never put a scrap of gold or silver in my pocket, I believe that it has done me good, and will do me good, and I say God bless it.
Good afternoon.
I will keep my Christmas humor to the last, so a Merry Christmas, Uncle.
Good afternoon.
And a Happy New Year.
Good afternoon.
His nephew left the room without an angry word, but the clerk, in letting Scrooge's nephew out, had let 2 other people in.
At this festive season of the year, Mr. Scrooge, we should make some slight provision for the poor and destitute, who suffer greatly at the present time. A few of us are endeavoring to raise a fund to buy the poor some meat and drink and means of warmth. What shall I put you down for?
Nothing.
You wish to be anonymous?
I wish to be left alone. Since you ask me what I wish, gentlemen, this is my answer. I make merry myself at Christmas, and I can afford to make idle people merry. I help to support the prisons and the workhouses. They cost enough, and those who are badly off, well, they must go there.
Many can't go there, and many would rather die.
Well, if they'd rather die, they'd better do it.
The hour of shutting up the counting house arrived. Scrooge took his melancholy dinner in his usual melancholy tavern and went home to bed. Now it is a fact that there's nothing at all particular about the knocker on the door of this house, except that it is very large. And yet Scrooge, having his key in the lock of the door, saw on the knocker, not a knocker, but Marley's face with a dismal light about it, like a bad lobster in a dark cellar. As Scrooge looked at this, it was a knocker again. He said, "Pooh-pooh," and closed the door with a bang. The sound resounded through the house like thunder. Bang, bang, bang. Every room above and every cask in the wine merchant's cellars below, bang, 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 appeared to have a separate peal of echoes, bang, bang, bang of its own. Scrooge was not a man to be frightened by echoes. He fastened the door and walked across the hall and up the stairs. Up Scrooge went, not carrying a button, for it's being very dark. Darkness is cheap, and Scrooge liked it. Quite satisfied, he closed his door and locked himself in, double-locked himself in, which was not his custom, thus secured against surprise. He put on his dressing gown and slippers and his nightcap and sat down before the very low fire to take his gruel. As he threw his head back in the chair, his glance happened upon a bell, a disused bell that hung in the room. It was with great astonishment and with a strange dread that as he looked, he saw this bell begin to swing. And soon it rang out loudly, and so did every bell in the house. This was succeeded by a clanking noise, clank, deep down below, clank, as if some person, clank, were dragging a heavy chain, clank, over the casks in the wine merchant's cellars. Then he heard the noise much louder, clank, on the floors below, clank, then coming up the stairs, clank, then coming straight towards his door, clank. It came on through the heavy door, clank, and a specter passing into the room before his eyes. And upon his coming in, the dying flame leaped up as though it cried, "I know him. Marley must go.
What do you want with me?
Much."
Who are you?
Ask me who I was.
Well, who were you then?
In life, I was your partner, Jacob Marley. The ghost sat down on the opposite side of the fireplace as if he were quite used to it.
You don't believe in me?
I don't. Why do you doubt your own senses?
Because a little thing affects them. You may be an undigested bit of beef, a blot of mustard, a crumb of cheese, a fragment of underdone potato. There is more gravy than grave about you. Whatever you are.
The spirit raised a frightful cry.
Mercy, mercy, dreadful apparition! Why do you trouble me? Why do spirits walk the earth, and why do they come to me?
It is required of every man that the spirit within him should walk among his fellow men and travel far and wide. And if the spirit goes not forth in life, he is condemned to do so after death. I cannot rest. I cannot stay. I cannot linger anywhere. My spirit never walked beyond our counting house. Mark me, in life, my spirit never rode beyond our money. Changing whole and weary journeys lie before me.
Scrooge was very much dismayed to hear the specter going on at this rate and began to quake exceedingly.
I am here tonight to warn you that you may have yet a chance of hope of escaping my fate. You will be haunted by 3 spirits. Expect the first tomorrow night when the bell tolls 1. Expect the second upon the next night at the same hour. The third upon the next night when the last stroke is 12. Cease to vibrate. Look to see me no more.
Scrooge tried to say humbug, but stopped at the first syllable, and being from the motion he had undergone, or the fatigue of the day, or his glimpse of the invisible world, or the conversation of the ghost, or the lateness of the hour, he went straight to bed and fell asleep on the instant.
Deck the halls with boughs of holly, fa la 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 la. 'Tis the season to be jolly, fa la 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 la. Don we now our gay apparel, fa la 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 la. Toll the ancient Yuletide carol, fa la 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 la.
When Scrooge awoke, the church clock tolled a deep, hollow, melancholy bong. 1. Light flashed up in the room upon the instant, and the curtains of his bed were drawn aside by a figure like a child.
Are you the spirit, sir, whose coming was foretold to me?
I am.
Who and what are you? I am the ghost of Christmas past.
As the words were spoken, they passed through the wall and stood in the busy thoroughfares of his city. It was made plain enough by the dressing of the shops that here, too, it was Christmas time. The ghost stopped at a certain warehouse door and asked Scrooge if he knew it.
Know it? I apprenticed here.
They went in at sight of an old gentleman in a Welsh wig, sitting behind such a high desk that if he had been 2 inches taller, he might have knocked his head against the ceiling. Scrooge cried in great excitement.
Why, it's old Fezziwig! Bless his heart, it's Fezziwig alive again! Yo-ho there, Ebenezer, Dick!
A living and moving picture of Scrooge's former self, a young man, came briskly in, accompanied by his fellow apprentice.
Yo-ho, my boys. No more work tonight. Christmas Eve, Dick. Christmas, Ebenezer. Let's have the shutters up before men can say Jack Robinson. Clear away, my lads, and let's have lots of room here.
Clear away! There was nothing they wouldn't have cleared away or couldn't have cleared away. With old Fezziwig looking on, it was done in a minute. The warehouse was as snug and warm and dry and bright a ballroom as you would desire to see upon a winter's night. In came a fiddler with a music book and went up to the lofty desk and made an orchestra and tuned like 50 stomach aches. In came Mrs. Fezziwig, one last smile. In came the 3 Miss Fezziwigs, beaming and lovable. In they all came, one after another, some shyly, some boldly, some gracefully, some awkwardly, some pushing, some pulling. In they all came anyhow and everyhow. When the clock struck 11, his ball broke up. Mr. and Mrs. Fezziwig shaking hands with every person as he or she went out, wishing him or her a Merry Christmas.
A small matter to make these silly folks so full of gratitude. He has spent but few pounds of your money. 3 or 4 perhaps. Is this so much he deserves this praise? It's not that spirit. He's the power to render us happy or unhappy, to make our service a pleasure or a toil. Say that as power lies in words and looks and things impossible to add and count them up. What then? The happiness he gives is quite as great as if it costs a fortune. Spirit, remove me from this place. Haunt me no longer.
As he struggled with the spirit, he was conscious of being exhausted and overcome by an irresistible drowsiness, and further of being in his own room. He had barely time to reel to bed before he sank into a heavy sleep.
It came upon a midnight clear, that glorious song of old, from angels bending near the earth to touch their hearts of gold. Peace on the earth, goodwill to men, from heaven's all gracious King. The world in solemn stillness lay to hear the angels sing.
Scrooge awoke in his bedroom. The walls and ceilings were so hung with living green that it looked a perfect grove. The leaves of holly, mistletoe, and ivy reflected back the light, and such a mighty blaze went roaring up the chimney. Heaped upon the floor to form a kind of throne were turkeys, geese, great joints of meat, pigs, long wreaths of sausage, mince pies, plum puddings, barrels of oysters, red-hot chestnuts, cherry-cheeked apples, juicy oranges, luscious pears, great bowls of punch, and immense 12 cakes. And upon this couch there sat a giant, glorious to see, who bore a glowing torch.
Come in, know me better, man. I am the ghost of Christmas present. Look upon me. You have never seen the like of me before. Touch my robe.
Scrooge did as he was told and held it fast. The room and its contents all vanished instantly, and they stood in the city streets upon a snowy Christmas morning. Scrooge and the ghost passed on invisible, straight to Scrooge's clerks, and on the threshold of the door the spirit smiled and stopped to bless Bob Cratchit's dwellings with the sprinkling of his torch. Then up rose Mrs. Cratchit.
What has ever got your precious father then? And your brother, Tiny Tim?
No, there's father coming.
In came Bob the father, his threadbare clothes darned up and brushed to look seasonable, and Tiny Tim. Alas for Tiny Tim, he wore a little crutch and had his limbs supported by an iron frame.
And how did little Tim behave?
As good as gold and better. Somehow he gets thoughtful sitting by himself so much and thinks the strangest things you've ever heard. One time he told me, coming home, that he hoped the people saw him in the church because he was a cripple, and it might be pleasant to them to remember upon Christmas Day who made lame beggars walk and blind men see.
Master Peter went to fetch the goose, with which he soon returned in high procession. Mrs. Cratchit made the gravy ready beforehand in a little saucepan hissing hot. Master Peter mashed the potatoes with incredible vigor. Miss Belinda sweetened up the applesauce. Bob took Tiny Tim beside him in a tiny corner at the table. At last the dishes were set on, and grace was said. It was succeeded by a breathless pause, as Mrs. Cratchit, looking slowly all along the carving knife, prepared to plunge it into the breast, But when she did, and the long-expected gush of stuffing issued forth, one murmur of delight arose all around the board. And even Tiny Tim, excited by the young Cratchits, beat on the table and feebly cried, "Hurrah!" But now, the plates being changed by Miss Belinda, Mrs. Cratchit left the room alone to take the pudding up and bring it in. Mrs. Cratchit entered, smiling proudly with the pudding, like a speckled cannonball, so hard and firm, blazing in half of quartern of ignited brandy, and belike with Christmas holly stuck into the top.
Oh, a wonderful pudding.
At last the dinner was all done, the cloth was cleared, the hearth swept, and the fire made up. Then all the Cratchit family drew round the hearth, while the chestnuts on the fire spluttered and crackled noisily. They were happy, grateful, pleased with one another, and contented with the time. And then they faded, and looked happier yet in the bright sprinkling of the spirits' torch at parting. Scrooge had his eye upon them, and especially on Tiny Tim until the last. But the whole scene passed off, and he and the spirit were upon their travels. Much they saw and far they went, and many homes they visited, but always with a happy end. Suddenly they stood together in an open place. The bell struck. Bong, 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 bong. 12. Scrooge looked about him for the ghost and saw it no more. As the last stroke ceased to vibrate, he remembered the prediction of old Jacob Marley, and lifting up his eyes, beheld a solemn phantom, draped and hooded, coming along the mist towards him.
Ghost of the future, I fear you more than any specter I've seen. Will you not speak to me?
He gave him no reply. The hand was pointed straight before them.
Lead on, lead on. The night is waning fast, and it's precious time to me. I know. Lead on. Spirit.
They scarcely seemed to enter the city, for the city rather seemed to spring up about them. But there they were in the heart of it, amongst the merchants. The spirit stopped beside one little knot of businessmen, observing that the hand was pointed to them. Scrooge advanced to listen to them talk.
I don't know much about it either way. I only know he's dead.
When did he die?
Last night, I believe.
And what has he done with his money?
Haven't heard. Business, perhaps. He hasn't given it to me. That's all I know.
The scene had changed, and now he almost touched a bare, uncertain bed. A pale light, rising out of the air, fell straight upon this bed. And on it, unwatched, unwept, uncared for, was the body of this unknown man.
Spirit, let me see some tenderness connected with the death of this dark chamber. Spirit will be forever present to me.
The ghost conducted him to poor Bob Cratchit's house, the dwelling he had visited before, and found the mother and the children seated round the fire. They were quiet, very quiet. Peter had a book before him, and the mother and her daughter were engaged in needlework, but surely they were very quiet. The mother laid her work upon the table and put her hand up to her face.
Oh, the color hurts me eyes. They're better now again. It makes them weak by candlelight. And I wouldn't show weak eyes to your father when he comes home. For the world, it must be near his time.
Past it, brother, but I think he has walked a little slower than he used to these few last evenings, mother.
I have known him. I have known him walk with Tiny Tim upon his shoulder. Very fast indeed, but he was light to carry. And his father loved him so that it was no trouble. No trouble. And there's your father at the door.
She hurried out to meet him, and Bob came in. Bob was very cheerful with them and spoke pleasantly to all the family. He looked at the work upon the table and praised Mrs. Cratchit and the children.
You went today then, Robert?
Yes, my dear. I wish you could have gone. It would have done you good to see how green a place it is. But you'll see it often. I promised him I would walk there on a Sunday. My little child. My little child.
Spectre, something informs me that our parting moment is at hand. I know it, but I know not how. Show me what man that was, with the covered face, whom we saw lying, dead.
The ghost of Christmas yet to come conveyed him to a dismal, wretched, ruinous churchyard. The spirit stood among the graves and pointed down to one. Scrooge crept towards it, trembling as he went, and falling the finger read upon the stone of the neglected grave his own name, Ebenezer Scrooge.
Am I that man who lay upon the bed? No, spirit. Oh no, spirit, hear me. I am not the man I was. I will not be the man I must have been. Why show me this if I am past all hope? Assure me that I may change these shadows you show me by an altered life. I will honor Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all year. Or tell me I may sponge away the writing on this stone.
Holding up his hands in one last prayer to have his fate reversed, he saw an alteration in the phantom's hood and dress. It shrunk, collapsed, and dwindled down into a bedpost. Yes, and the bedpost was his own, the bed was his own, the room was his own. Best and happiest of all the time before it was his own to make amends in. He was checked in his transports by the churches ringing out the lustiest peals he had ever heard. Bong, 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 bong. Running to the window, he opened it and put out his head. No fog, no mist, no night, clear, bright, stirring, golden day.
What's today?
Cried Scrooge, calling downward to a boy in Sunday clothes.
Eh? What's today, my fine fellow? Today? Why, Christmas Day. It's Christmas Day. I haven't missed it. Hello, my fine fellow. Hello. Do you know the poultier's in the next street, but the one at the corner?
I sure hope I did.
An intelligent boy. A remarkable boy. Do you know whether they've sold the prize turkey that was hanging up there? Not the little prize turkey, the big one. What, the one as big as me? What a delightful boy. It's a pleasure to talk to him. Yes, my buck. It's hanging there now. It is? Go and buy it. No, I'm in earnest. Go and buy it and tell them to bring it here, so that I may give them the direction of where to take it. Come back with the man and I'll give you a shilling. Come back with the man in less than 5 minutes and I'll give you half a crown.
The boy was off like a shot.
I'll send it to Bob Cratchit's. He shan't know who sent it. It's twice the size of Tiny Tim.
Scrooge dressed himself all in his best, and at last got out into the streets. The people were by this time pouring forth, as he had seen them with the ghost of Christmas present, and walking with his hands behind him. Scrooge regarded everyone with a delightful smile. He looked so irresistibly pleasant. In a word that 3 or 4 good-humored fellows said, "Good morning, sir. A Merry Christmas to you." He was early at the office next morning. If only he could be there first and catch Bob Cratchit coming late. The clock struck 9. No Bob. 1/4 past. No Bob. Bob was a full 18 minutes and a half behind his time. Bob's hat was off before he opened the door. He was on his stool in a jiffy, driving away with his pen as if he were trying to overtake 9 o'clock.
Hello. What do you mean by coming here this time of day?
I'm sorry, sir. I'm behind my time.
You are? Yes, I think you are. Step this way, if you please. Now I tell you what, my friend, I'm not going to stand for this sort of thing any longer, and therefore I'm about to raise your salary.
Bob trembled.
A Merry Christmas, Bob, my good fellow. A merrier Christmas, Bob, than I've given you for many a year. I'll raise your salary and endeavor to assist your struggling family.
Scrooge was better than his word, who did it all and infinitely more. And to Tiny Tim, who did not die, he was a second father. He became as good a friend, as good a master, as good a man as the good old city knew, or any other good old city, town, or borough in the good old world. Some people laughed to see the alteration in him, but his own heart laughed, and that was quite enough for him. And it was always said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well. May that be truly said of us and all of us. And so, as Tiny Tim observed,
God bless us, everyone!
We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Good tidings we bring to you and your kin. Good tidings for Christmas and a Happy New Year. Now bring us some figgy pudding. Now bring us some figgy pudding. Now bring us some figgy pudding and a cup of good cheer. We wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
And our classical friends quickly saw the comparison between Vincent and Tiny Tim. And there was a number of different people who did different activities. We had some kids raking leaves, we had kids baking cookies, we had someone do a garage sale, we had an amazing bookmark factory happening, we had a craft night. And not only did we raise enough money for Vincent, we raised enough money for a little boy named Josie, and now we're working on helping a little boy named Rodini. And tonight, these wonderful kids performed this, and in lieu of any sort of fee to come and see, they're asking that you make a donation, if possible, to Rodini. So in the back, close to the Christmas books that Beth has also available there, is a little box. And if you're able to, the kids and everyone would really appreciate a donation. Anything above $25 can be receipted through a charity called One for Another. So if you're doing that, make sure you grab a little yellow envelope and make sure you have your full name and address so you can get your receipt. And also, if you happen to be filling out a check, it's made out to One for Another. The name is there as well. Did I miss anything? I also saw back there is copious amounts of snacks, no figgy pudding, but delicious snacks. So I'm sure everyone stay, congratulate the actors and actresses on a job well done. And what a wonderful night. Thanks again, guys.